Hi everyone, Quiveen here from the comfort of my kitchen. In today's video, we will be taking a look forward into the month of October. Of course, October has Halloween, but it also has Space Week running from the 4th to the 10th of this month. So we will start by covering a few of the highlights, some of the interesting things that are up in the sky during October. However, a lot of them are the same as some of the very interesting things we were seeing in September. It takes a while for planets, especially the further out planets like Saturn and Jupiter, to noticeably move across our sky. So we will also briefly deal with the topic of light pollution. So we're starting here looking into the sky around the 6th of October, so next weekend, and Saturn is already there, nice and prominent in the sky. We won't have to wait too long for Jupiter to rise. Jupiter will be rising earlier and earlier as we get later in the month. So let's quickly move forward a little bit in the month. We're keeping the time the same and just moving the date ahead. So you can see as we come up to the end of October and Halloween, Jupiter's already nice and high in the sky, but here as early as just 7:15. So things will be changing in the sky, but the planets that were visible in September, most of them will stay visible in October. All that's going to change is when you're going to see them. So Saturn will already be risen when the sun goes down, as it was in September. Jupiter is going to be up much earlier as it reaches opposition. So it will be in a similar position relative to the Earth as the full moon is when it's full. Moving quickly forward to morning time, we can see that Venus is still there, and Venus will continue to look great all the way through October. But even early in October, Mercury is practically out of view. Even though Mercury will technically be above the horizon before the sun rises for the early part of October, it's super close to sunrise. That's going to make it not only difficult, but a little dangerous to try to observe. If we continue to move later in the month, you can see that the sun is rising later. We are very much getting into winter as we move through October, but Mercury has essentially vanished from our view. It's basically on the wrong side of the sun. We're not going to get a chance to see it. So September was really our chance to see Mercury. If you missed Mercury on the 22nd of September, don't worry, Mercury's whole year is only 88 days. It will come back around nice and quick. We can see that Venus is going to be visible much earlier in the night. So we can see here from about 4:30 in the morning, Venus is already up and visible. Taking a look into the south at 4:30 in the morning, we have this lovely constellation of Orion. Orion still isn't super prominent for the entire night, as it will be once we get a little later in the year, but moving back towards sunset here, sunset, moving back towards sunset here at the later part of October, we can see here just a little after midnight, Orion is there. So we won't have to wait until, real morning time to see Orion as we get into the end of October, moving swiftly back to the beginning of October, or at least next week. Orion is pretty much under the horizon. We can still see Betelgeuse and Bellatrix, two of the higher stars, the shoulders of the Hunter, but it is going to be difficult to see the rest of the constellation if you were trying to go and observe things early. As we're getting into winter, of course, it's going to get dark earlier, and that means we will have much longer to enjoy objects in the sky. If we turn around to the north here, we're going to be able to see the North Star, the Plough, and Cassiopeia for much longer. We don't have to worry about them rising or setting at any part of the night. They'll be up all night long, so as the night gets longer, they're going to stay visible for longer. Turning back around to the south, given that we are looking not only at Space Week, but looking forward into November, there will be the Dark Sky festivals happening around Ireland. A dark sky is a sky with limited light pollution or no light pollution, whereas a sky such as this, well, light pollution is a pretty big problem. For the early part of October, we won't really have to worry too much about the moon. We will be going through the new moon in early October, coming back around to the full moon as we reach the very end of October. We're going to remove the light pollution, the light from the city, the streetlights, the houses, the cars. If the moon isn't in the sky, the only extraneous light that's going to affect your view is light created by people. If we get rid of that, we get a much better view of the sky. So we can already see there's way more stars visible here. In a city like Cork, you might only be seeing a few hundred stars, whereas in a darker area of the countryside, you can be seeing 2,000 or more. We can also see this lovely glow of the Milky Way. Even though we are very much coming into wintertime, we are still seeing the summer triangle for the early part of the evening as we go through October, so we will be able to see this lovely glow of the Milky Way stretching across the sky for a large portion of the night. We can look down here to the south as well to see the constellation of Sagittarius. This constellation is pretty much at the Milky Way's center from our perspective. Of course, these stars are closer to us than the black hole in the middle of our Milky Way, but this sort of teapot shape, that'll help you find where the center of the Milky Way is. It will be there early in the evening. We're just looking at almost 9 o'clock here. If you can see the summer triangle in the sky, pointing your telescope into the center will show you something interesting. Even if you just see some extra stars, that's at least going to give you a nice dense part of the sky to focus on. There are way more stars visible through a telescope if you're looking in towards the Milky Way rather than looking away from it. Because our galaxy is a flat disk shape, the stars are concentrated within that disk. So looking outside of the disk in other directions, it's not going to show you as many stars. At least it won't show you as many things within our galaxy. On the flip side, our galaxy can block our view of anything outside our galaxy. If you're looking into the Milky Way, you're not going to see our near neighboring galaxies, and you won't see as many globular clusters, the balls of stars that orbit around galaxies. While we are in a nice dark sky, of course, the constellation and the galaxy of Andromeda, they are up there on the opposite side of Cassiopeia to the North Star, just up there. Just underneath the plough, however, is a fantastic group of galaxies. So there are a few galaxies visible around here, and if you are in a sufficiently dark sky, you might see some fuzziness where those galaxies lie, even with quite a small telescope. Taking a closer look, of course, gives us a much better view. This is the Whirlpool Galaxy. If we take a click on it, you can see there's its name. It's got a few other names as well. Ross's galaxy comes from the first person to observe it as a spiral shape in the sky, the Earl of Ross, working in Birr, County Offaly with the Leviathan telescope. If your interest was piqued by that, an astronomer working with a giant telescope in County Offaly, don't worry, we will talk about that more in the future. Zooming in here, we have another wonderful spiral galaxy. This is the Pinwheel Galaxy. The Pinwheel, the Whirlpool, the Sunflower. A lot of these names are evocative of the shape of the galaxy that we're seeing, these being spiral galaxies, very similar to our own, very similar to Andromeda, which again, is just up there. If you are in a sufficiently dark sky, Andromeda is visible with your eyes, but I do have a little tip. If you're looking straight at Andromeda, you're using the middle of your eye, which is full of cells that sense different wavelengths of light, different colors. If you look next to Andromeda, maybe closer to Cassiopeia, the light from Andromeda won't be focused in the middle of your eye, which is better at seeing color, but at the edges of your eye, your periphery, which is better at differentiating light and dark. You can only fit so many cells in your eye, so of course there is a trade-off between seeing color and seeing different shades of grey. If you want to see the different shades of grey that represent galaxies in the night sky, it might be easier to look next to your target instead of directly at it. Just before we finish up, I will very quickly remind you that there is an eclipse coming up at the end of October. We will have a partial lunar eclipse on the night of the 28th. If you'd like to see more of that and hear a little bit more about the motion of the moon, you can check out the last video that was posted on this channel. However, if we move up to the 28th here and move forward in time just a little bit to about 9 o'clock, there's the moon right next to Jupiter in the sky. So this could make a fantastic photo if you have a telephoto lens. Something like this, where we have that bright, bright shape of Jupiter and that little bit of a shadow just touching the bottom of the moon. We'll take a closer look. There is our deep shadow, the umbra, and our lighter shadow, penumbra, covering the moon. Again, if you'd like to hear more about that eclipse, you can check out the previous video on this channel. We will, of course, talk about the different objects that are going to be visible in October more as we push further into October, and particularly during Space Week running from the 4th to the 10th. For now, that does bring us to the end of the show. I very much hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like the video, and if you like this kind of astronomical content, then I'd love for you to subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you'd like to see all of these videos listed with some brief descriptions, you can check out queebeanscontent.ie, and hopefully I'll see you next time.